Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Amy, for a great introduction. Good to see you, everybody. It's the first time I'm visiting here, Sacramento Church. When I got this morning, the first person I met was James. Over 25 years ago, I was a witness by a New York cop. And then, so the day I got a witness, I went to the workshop, right, for the Divine Principle workshop. And at that workshop site, one of the first person I met was James. He was a leader over there lecturing, right? He was very kind, surprised, very friendly, and then my heart was very open to it. It's ready to receive the God's words, I would say. So just hearing the people like that, it's kind of remembering my all the years. And so as before I introduce him, my name is Kazuya Morita, originally from Japan. And so a little bit I give a story. So I was witnessed by New York cop over 25 years ago when I was walking down the street. And then, so when I meet with one Japanese girl and on the street, I was brought to that's called video center, right, to listen to some sort of introduction lecture. Here is a leader that gave me this introduction lecture of the Unification principle. And then, actually before he start talk, he asked my name, and then he was Japanese, so he understood how to write my name in the Chinese character on a whiteboard. And as soon as he wrote in a whiteboard my name, he started kind of analyze, how to perceive your name and then predict your future. We have those kind of things in Japan. So he started analyzing my family name, which comes from my ancestor, and my own first name, the Kazuya. He started saying that, your name is very bad. My name is Kazuya, is one of the worst name. It's not name, it's about in the Chinese character. Kazuya can be written in many different Chinese character. So that my Chinese character, he told me, is bad. And but he told me that your relationship with ancestor is very, very good. That's relieved. And he told me also, you're gonna be very successful with your work, but you will have a very, very difficult time with your family. That really closed my mind. Listen, whatever he said afterwards. So after that, he started speaking about unification principle. I was sitting just like this. Because I don't want to listen, whatever he said, right? Because family is most important to me that time. Still, growing in Japan, I have a parents, father, mother. And then I would say I grew up in a good family. But at time my family and my parents argue a lot. They fight. Right? I sometimes get into the physical. So I have to go into the between to stop my father. Right? So growing up that kind of family, I remember that all I want in my life is creating very beautiful, good family. Right? So that was my wish. So here comes in New York, and he told me that you have a hard time to have a good family. So I didn't ask him why, but that's what he analyzed from the name. So today I want to talk about actually the family. And here coming to this Sacramento church and then see all the family and children, it's really wonderful. Amifa was holding her own child and singing. It's very beautiful. Kind of worshiping God together in this kind of environment, I would say it's really ideal. In a Berea Family Church, over there, we have separate room. Kids go to different room, which is great too. But sometimes singing together like that I think it's very, very wonderful. And then the other day I was praying. So before coming to here to speak, I was praying to God that what should I share? And then as soon as I started praying, and then something that I didn't think about is about family that I felt that God wanted me to really share. Because the last 6,000 years, what God was trying to do is having a good idea of family, right? We see that a lot of successful people, to say this in this world, even though individual could be very, very successful, either career-wise, and then some business person, and then promote a great value, and then successful person. But having a successful family is a completely different level, and then I would say that not many people really say that they could create a really successful family in the history. Right? So that was almost kind of resentment of the heavenly parent that could not see his family, starting from Adam's family, already the chaotic family. Adam and Eve disunited, and then also parents, and then Cain and Abel, parent-child was kind of disunited. And then Noah's family, actually child, right? One who kind of betrayed their own parents, right? Noah brought successful in terms of facing God, but child could not inherit the faith of the parents. Abraham time, first time, the son Isaac inherited the great faith from the father Abraham. But throughout all the history, it was very, very difficult. Right? Even Jesus' family is such kind of unity in between Jesus himself and then the parents figure, Mary and Joseph. All these things was very, very difficult challenge. So even one person brought a victory, but how to expand to the family level is this great issue. Sounds like a very simple, because with family is such a small unit and easy to kind of get along, but that took 6,000 years biblically from God's viewpoint. So I understood how really difficult actually. The other day I heard founder of the Facebook, the Mark Zuckerberg. He is a very successful person now. I heard that when he growing up in a family, he has a parents and then 3 other siblings, I think. When he grew up in his family, I heard that most important thing to him was a family. Right? He said that whatever happened in his life, most important thing is his family. If he doesn't take care of the family or solve the problem, he understood that nothing's really matter in a school work or whatever he does. So I understood that maybe he doesn't know the unification principle, but he understood that what is important key point really successful for his own life. And we can see that very beautiful picture of him. Right? And also the many other people may be encouraged to have a great family, but again, it's a challenging issue. So when I was thinking like that, creating this great family, and what comes to my mind is this divine principle of this second blessing of the family 4-position foundation, right? Father, mother, and then child. And when I look at this diagram, look like okay. So if I get married, and then as soon as we have a child, look like family 4-position foundation, look like a second blessing. And I realized that it was not that easy like that. Having this child doesn't mean that okay, that's a God's family or family 4-position foundation, because giving birth to child is easy. I mean, it's not my duty, at least. I mean, every woman does that, right? I don't say that's an easy job, but everybody create their own family in that sense, having a child. But what really difficult part is raise child to expect it to so-called maybe a standard, right? In our church tradition, because I married with my wife with same kind of church tradition and believe in kind of unification principle. So in a way, easier to get together, easy to kind of unite it, understanding each other. So in that sense, maybe family, husband-wife relationship, it's not that maybe difficult. But what's really challenging is how can I raise my child as a God's really object, right? And the divine principle say is that for family for position foundation be accomplished when the husband and wife and child, each one of them become really possible God's object. So it means I need to stand in front of God first of all as a really object, and then so is my wife. But now that's not the end. How can I help my son to standing as God's object? And that's really challenging part. And studying this adolescence of the boy and girls, I understood that everybody goes through the adolescence to become more independent, right? Have you ever been rebellious when you're a child? in more or less, right? I would say I was not rebellious toward my parents much. I hope I didn't cause too much pain to parents. But when after I become parents, I could really understand how really difficult, challenge. Because as they grow, they start growing kind of independency. When they are until like around maybe 10 years old, whatever I say, they do it. They don't doubt so much, right? Or because parents say so, okay, I'll do it. Take out trash and clean up and do that, do this. Let's go to the church. Okay, we'll go to church. We meet with friends. It's not that difficult. Excuse me. But when they become more middle school and high school, they start growing their own mind, right? They want to choose on themselves. They start doubting. Well, my father said that. Is that really true? Right? My mother said this one. Really? Right? And it start all kind of question. I think this is a natural process, I think not because of the fall. I think it's because of a natural process, because eventually they have to separate from the parents, right? They cannot stick with the parents all the time. They need to develop, they need to come to make their own decision, whatever happened to their own life, right? Because they cannot rely on parents. So in order to make their own decision, they need to learn to kind of separate. So that's kind of natural process of a human being to grow, right? So they need to test out. They're not trying to test out how parents are patient, but that's a natural process that they want to test out how much I can handle with my own life. That's a kind of conscience telling them to separate from parents. So sometimes that comes out as a conflict with the parents, right? So that's a challenging issue. So what do they do? Developing this kind of independence mind, how can I embrace them at the same time encourage them to go to the right directions? Right? Because certainly they're influenced by the peers, so-called this secular world culture and viewpoint, right? So they not necessarily agree that what we're teaching through the unification principle. So it's very, very challenging. So when I'm thinking like that, how can I raise the children and how can I raise the family in front of this God? And then here's one of the conclusions I received. The one of the conclusion I got is really our conscience. How to grow our conscience. Because eventually, children, they don't necessarily listen. But God gave us a conscience. Everybody has conscience. Right? You have a conscience too, right? Everybody has to just make sure. Right? Everybody has conscience. Right? I remember when I was in a middle school, I think I was middle school, right? And then I think I was a good boy, but sometimes want to tease my friends, classmates, right? And then and not only me, it's my other classmate is even worse, teasing one of the kids, right? And then this boy was poor that always so upset because teased, right? And then, many days kind of, teasing him or observing that this boy was teased, right? And temporarily feel kind of satisfaction, kind of false joy, of course. But every time I come back home, and I somehow start thinking about him. And you know what? When I start thinking about him, what comes to my mind? Out of nowhere, his mother, his father comes to my mind. And then start thinking, yeah, this boy is kind of awkward, but he has also parents who really love him so much, no matter what. Well, I didn't listen to Divine Principle that time, but nobody teaching me to think about his parents. But when I think about his parents, I feel really sorry that what I did it. And then I realize that this is my conscience telling these things. If I'm doing something wrong, we know that we did something wrong. And if I do something great, conscience kind of telling me that I'm doing right? It's amazing that even though I didn't know the divine principle back then, but something kind of principle I know. So God gave you this kind of conscience. And the question is, okay, how can I raise conscience in a higher level, step by step, right? Because, for some people, conscience is very, very low, right? Justifying that whatever they want to believe. So bringing the conscience in the highest level, that's, I think, ultimately our own portion of responsibility. So my focus now is to raise my own children to grow their own really conscience. So it means when there's some kind of a question, they don't necessarily ask parents, they don't necessarily ask their own friends and teacher, but they learn to ask their own conscience to find the kind of answer. I think that's very, very important. Because when I think about this Adam's family, remember this Cain and Abel offered the offering to the God, right? Which means they already know that the God existed. And they both of them offered, right? Something important. But in Cain, when his offering was not taken by God, and when he read the Bible, seems like he really upset, right? But he could have prayed. He could have prayed, or in a way pray or ask God, why my offering was not taken? Right? If he prayed, I believe that he could sense something from their own conscience. Maybe from this experience, maybe I should learn something. Right? So that we have that kind of conscience connecting to God. True Father said that the conscience is better than God, right? Better than parents, better than teacher. So we have this kind of superior conscience that we should not take it granted. So in that sense, in order to grow the conscience, we need to really pray. So I try to really teach my children to pray. But I don't have my consistency to educate the children to pray, because prayer is very difficult. For me also, it's very, very difficult, right? Saying that the prayer is very easy, but breakthrough in the prayer is completely different level, right? Because if you pray, sometimes become prayer is very kind of ritual, kind of sit down, kind of meditate and murmuring, right? And then when you realize and you are kind of laying down on the floor, so you don't know what you did it. So it's really challenging. This is like a spiritual battle. It's really. But I believe when they have this kind of great experience in the prayer, and then start to listen that, I have something that I can find my own answer, I give them strong sense of confidence as well too. Right? So I believe this is a very, very important point. I remember that when True Father went to many years ago, what was that? 1947, 8. He was in prison, and probably you remember the story that he was meant to meet with one lady in the prison. Because this lady was holding this very important key point for the providence, right? So True Father wrote message to this lady, right? You should deny whatever you're saying, and you should get out from this prison and wait for me. Father tried to send a message to this lady because holding very important key role, the providence. True Father wrote with kind of chopstick envelope, and then with dust and saliva and making a kind of ink, and then wrote message. True Father sent this message quite a few times because first time she didn't respond it. Every time she kind of discarded this message. But eventually, this message was found by the gardener, and True Father was tortured to death. Probably you heard of this story. Important lesson about this is this lady who was very, very spiritualist was believing that God will save me from get out from this prison, right? So she did not pray, which means she just completely rely on God. Whatever happened, God will take care of me, and she didn't fulfill her own portion responsibility of seeking, right? What is my own responsibility? She didn't ask her own conscience. Father said that if she have asked, of course, she could get some answer from the God. But many times we neglect those kind of things to seeking my own way, right? So in terms of this kind of family, each one of the father, mother, and child pray in order to create a greater family. Each one of us pray that in order to create a beautiful family, what is my role? What is my responsibility? What should I do? I think pray that for common purpose, each one of us pray. That's, I think, is a very important point. Otherwise, my kids are not going to listen. I have two sons, 14 and 17. They're high schooler. They're not necessarily rebellious, but I understand they not necessarily listen to me, right? So I try to encourage them how to strengthen their own decisions, right? Around this time last year, my son wanted to go to the movie with friends, sometimes which he does, which is very perfectly fine. But particularly that time, he wanted to go to the movie, Deadpool. Deadpool movie? Deadpool movie, rated R. And not rated R. When I watch the trailer, and when I listen to other people's story, this is very, very bad language. And then all kind of awkward screen, right? So I told my son that this is rated R. You know what does it mean? And he understood rated R, right? And then he said that still I want to go, right? And and I start to explain that what movie does to you, right? Okay. You may looking for just only kind of fun part, but language may stay in your head and maybe influence you, right? And I explain those things. We all understand that what is right and wrong, but what do you associate with really influence in your life? I start talking to about 10 minutes, not lecturing, but I started talking over the phone. It's not face to face because I was talking on the phone, right? And he was listening, right? He was listening, and I thought he understood. He said, still I want to go. Oh gosh, well, this is so strong. And I immediately understood that this is Adam and Eve went through, right? Adam and Eve understood God's message clearly not to eat. We don't do what we know. We do what we want to do. The emotion is so strong, right? So I understood that, this is not a logical explanation, right? So I told him, okay, pray. Please pray. Because, see, my point is, even though I could have him not to go by telling him, you shouldn't go. If you go, what happens? You come back, you see. I could threaten him almost, right? Right. So temporarily, maybe he listened to me, maybe unite with me. But again, it's not going to last, right? And after a few years down the road, he is on his own life. He go to college and his own life, and then he gonna do whatever he want. But what I wanted him is I wanted him to make his own choice. That's the most important thing. So I asked him, okay, pray. Okay, so pray to God, and then I don't know what kind of answer comes, but anyway, I told him, okay, pray, right? Because I wanted him to have this kind of habit of this kind of, when you're not understanding even though what you to do is right and wrong, I wanted him to go to pray, and I wanted him to feel it something, right? So I told him, okay, go pray. He didn't agree to go to pray initially, but he decided to go pray after that. I didn't know that he went to pray or not, so we just hung up. So that was such kind of a intense experience for me, because almost tempted to more controlling him, but I have to let go and trust in his own portion of responsibility, and God walks through his own conscience, or I trusted his own conscience. I don't trust his Hebrew mind, but I trusted his own conscience, and the process of making his own kind of decision, right? I want him to kind of own it, right? So after all, I asked him later on that, so I found that he didn't go, and I asked him, so did you pray? And he said, pray. Did you go pray right away? And he didn't. It took 15, 20 minutes for him to go to prayer, because still emotionally like this, right? And difficult to go to prayer, of course. So he have to kind of calm down himself a little bit. And then I don't think he got a kind of clear answer necessarily, but somehow he made his own decision that time anyway, right? So I thought that's a very precious experience for him, right? So, but I don't want my children to just take the responsibility to pray, so you can contribute to family and you become object, God, whatever. But I want to have my own responsibility also, first of all, in order to raise the family. God, teach me what I should do. Well, what is my role and clear role and responsibility towards my wife and children? So I fulfill my own responsibility. Many times I pray, his answer comes that not like a necessary intellectual viewpoint. Because all these years, over 20 years, I know divine principle in my head. But when I'm in a family situation, I'm not practicing principle necessarily. Right? A lot of ego comes out also. Right? So I have to separate myself, and then I have to pray, and then reconnect over and over again. But when I do that, then I feel more confidence that God really works through each one of our conscience in our family. That's, I believe, the starting point. So today's message is very simple, family. But in order to create this very beautiful family, is go back to the fundamental point of each one of us on this kind of spiritual life of going to like a prayer, asking conscience through the prayer. Then my attitude towards my child might be better. My attitude towards my wife will be really better. Something different. Something cannot describe just by the words. Right? So let's go back to the fundamental things that God was longing for the last 6,000 years. Just the family. And I believe this is just core. Right? And as we know, the kingdom of heaven starts from this family. So once we create this kind of family, many places, I think, come into the place. And then we can eventually reach out to the world. So before we reach out to the world, and let's one more time look at in our family, and then recommit and reconnect. During the prayer. Dear Heavenly Parents, thank you so much that you guided me to be here this morning, knowing that your love and presence in each place that I visit, the people that I meet, and I share love and the faith. Yes, Heavenly Parents, we once again commit today to create the beautiful family that you have been longing for last years and years. And no one really ever really successful to say that this is my family, this is a very beautiful family, this is your family. So Heavenly Parents, we ask you once again to open up our heart and mind and come into our soul and then to really become your object and raise a family, especially the small children that are our hope for the future, those second generation or third generation. These young people holding the key for the kingdom in heaven. And then we want to help them to really grow to your really good sons and daughters. Thank you very much. And then we pledge to create your family. I'd like to offer a report in the name of Kazuya Morita, Central Best Family, Jew. So let's turn to the neighbor and then share whatever you feel and then for this week.